Hello, welcome. Let's take a dive into Creator Archive. Holiest of Spirits, what energy needs to come forth the most? From the Most High Creator Source, from my ethereal collective, the originals. You're original in the sense that you're some of the closest embodiments to the mother and father of existence. So you pull in raw potentials. You are divine inspiration in action. If you haven't been watching me for a long time, you probably don't understand my religion, and that's all right. Basically, I believe that source energy fuels everything in creation with life, and it's like spiritual energy, and it gets polarized by the mind into dual aspects, okay? And I call that order and chaos, or the mother and the father in my beliefs. And I see the mother and the father as the very first embodiments of the source. And I see them as order and chaos, or as thoughts and feelings, because feelings usually appear chaotic and thoughts are meant to bring order to those feelings. So you can view it as feelings and thoughts, and then also thoughts are like frequencies, feelings are like vibrations. So it's all kinds of different views of the same thing. But everything that gets polarized by the mind gets built into like a co-creative reality. But before it gets polarized, it's just energy, like raw energy that could be used to create anything. And everything we've done with it is the world we have today. If everyone united in a mission to build something new, the whole world would shift, the energy would shift. I mean, it's beyond belief. It's dormant. There's dormant abilities that we have that the system is suppressing. And it makes us think that like the supernatural or the magic isn't real when it is. I had the weirdest experience the other day. I was doing a reading. And I know I can't like prove it at this point, but I'm going to tell you anyways. In the reading, I said, move with honor. And right when I said that, my crystal ball started rolling. Right when I said move. And it rolled like a good 6 inches on the table. And then it stopped, and I was like, whoa, like it responded right when I said move. And it made me think, like, what would happen if the world embraced their spiritual side, their crazy, their otherworldly energy? What would really happen? Imagine what would happen. And I embrace it fully, and nothing like that has ever happened to me. I've never been like telekinetic, but it's just moved on my command, and I was like, did I unlock some kind of secret code or something? How did I do that? And right when it moved, it like rolled towards me about 6 inches and stopped. And I looked at it, and it looked like it was full of this dark cloud. So much darkness, like a storm of darkness. And it looks like a curse in the energy world. Usually when someone's trapped in a storm for long periods of time, it's a curse. And when you go deep into the storm, you'll see that it's tangled to them. And you have to like start untangling the curse off of them kind of delicately. But you can fast track things. You don't always have to like take your time. But I feel taking your time creates less backlash. And it doesn't alert the person who cursed them. So when I've untangled curses, I try to do it secretively so it doesn't alert the person who set the curse. And then we don't have to get into a big battle, I want to do it discreetly. And anytime I've untangled a curse in my life with like readings or something, it starts out as this big, dark, stormy cloud. And then you go into the cloud and you see these strings attached to people. And everyone actually has strings all over them, and some of those are good things, good strings. Some of those strings attach you to like other worlds and aliens, and they're all different kinds of threads. All of us have them, and they're threads of information, like past lives. They're all kinds of different streams of consciousness attached to you, building your character, who you are right now, with all this like information that's been built throughout infinity. It's all been built in the mind. So kind of got lost for a second. Hold on, guys. And I would consider the mother and the father to be within the mind of the quantum mind, connected to all things. The source seems to be outside of it. And so people talk about like chaos, and the father and the mother pulled themselves out of chaos, but that was all within the womb. The source is outside the womb. It's infinite energy. And so the chaos and the order like organized itself. It's inevitable that the order will establish itself through chaos one way or another, and it does. You don't have to characterize it, but I do. So basically there's like realms outside of source energy where it becomes this nothingness. It fades. If you travel very, very far, through like an infinite space, you start to reach the edge of source energy, and it starts to become this nothingness. And everything is being drawn from a nothingness, but I've seen a really big view of it. And even from the nothingness, like potentials are drawn in. And it works in layers of manifestation. And so like source goes through expansion still within the nothingness, but within the nothingness is something just waiting to be seen. And it can't come into being, and it can't be realized until somebody can reach the level where they can see something where there was nothing. And these are layers even beyond source energy. And I wouldn't even call it a God. But a lot of things did pull themselves out of this space. All things were pulled out of this space. So if we could create absolutely everything the mind can imagine from this nothingness, apparently there's potentials within the nothingness that contain the everythingness that just can't be seen until someone unlocks it. So the nothingness is not the same as the womb. The nothingness fades into energy, and then it turns into polarity. And within the polarity is the dance of duality between the mother and the father, and the dance between thoughts and feelings and the human experience. And everything kind of trickles down from the mother and the father. They were the first ones to take form through the womb, through the chaos. So they were organized into the highest possible form, and they started plucking potentials themselves and pulling others into being. And some of you who are the originals were plucked into being by the original creator. The original body, they're the first embodiments of source, like polarity itself. You can call it whatever you want, but as soon as things started to contrast, there could be room to create new things. So the first ones to bring on an embodiment of the source within the womb, they started to pluck souls, other potentials into being, and they pulled them in with purpose. So some of the most closest souls to the original mother and father were the highest awareness within the whole ocean of consciousness. So when you get into the womb, it becomes like a very infinite ocean of consciousness. And I'm telling you, if you keep pushing, you'll reach layers beyond even that. But that is what's drawing the reality we see, like the physical world, is condensing from this ocean of consciousness. And within the ocean of consciousness, everything is entangled. It's got all those strings pulling on each other. And it's like the chaos effect where like everything is playing off each other. Like every little tiny thing is attached and playing off of each other. Like, you know, a bird could fly by that could reflect like an anxious thought in your mind. Or someone could step on a leaf and it could cause an avalanche in another part of the world. I don't know. Stuff like that. Everything is pulling on each other, but not like as a direct reflection, but in different ways. So every move you make, it affects the quantum mind. And that's why I call it a quantum mind, because the mother and the father, really both of them, Father God, Mother Goddess, are both within the collective consciousness too. They're attached to our every move just like we are to theirs. And I was really trying to just explain that the originals are not meaning like y'all are big gangsters out here, even though I'm sure you could be gangster if you wanted to, but it means you were plucked first because you had the highest awareness and you were like breathed with the life of God's inspiration and purpose. So you're very, very, very close to the highest forms. Okay? And that's what I mean by saying that the mother and the father are the highest, most evolved thoughts. Original, yet the most evolved, the beginning and the end at the same time, and the highest, most evolved feelings. More like feminine intuition and creativity and masculine logic and structure on the highest levels. And this is passed down, trickles down into all people. But some people were spawned, I guess, closer to God than others, in a sense. So I've been seeing this vision a million times, billions of times my whole life. And as I see it, it never changes. Like, that's the thing about the true God. You know, if I'm talking about source, I'm talking about energy, positive energy, all the good things. And that is more so like the source, creator, most high energy, because it is the highest energy. Beyond that is the nothingness that you can barely harness, yet somehow things are drawn from it. I still see it as an unrealized potential, just a place that's never been explored. So when I say the most high source creator, I'm talking about this positive energy. Some people want to call it love or a million different names, but it can be built when it gets realized into a mental form and then into a physical form. And once it can be expressed into form, the energy can take on any form. But it stays organic and the same, just positive and high frequency, unchanged when it's in its most raw source form before it takes on any embodiment. So we can build anything you can imagine, and we have, out of energy, but we can't change the original source signature energy. It stays like very perfect. And even trying to stay in that energy for too long is not possible, because everything outside of that energy is constantly changing. Everything within the quantum mind is in a consistent movement. So trying to stay in source energy where it doesn't really change, that most high creative, it's just creative. I would even call it creative energy and positive energy. And you can create anything out of it, but you can't change it. So everything that's created out of it drops down into a lesser layer, and it's all mental when I see it. And everything weaving together. So it's all happening in layers. Once consciousness started to become realized, it started creating boundaries, limitations, forms, shapes, and forms. It literally started building the most basic shapes and forms through very slowly becoming aware within this place of potentials, and these potentials start to spark realities, and sometimes God and goddesses will pull people into being for a purpose. Sometimes they'll spark naturally. But this is all within the womb is like another kind of mind. And there's minds within minds, and everything's within this sort of watery ocean. And it can be chaotic waters. It just depends. The waters change, depend on the energy of the collective and we swim in these waters before we become forms, and everything is inside of this. This is all of existence. It's a very macro thing. It's huge. Imagine just this giant container that was built off consciousness slowly becoming aware of its own self and its own existence, and building shapes and forms until it mastered building, became master builders in the womb, with enough intelligence to take on a unique form of their own. So they're sitting there in these waters, realizing themselves into form even before ever taking on a body. And it's something so unique about them that even gives them enough charge to get out of the chaotic waters and take on an embodiment of their purpose. You have to have a ton of purpose built up to be able to spark out of there. And the father and the mother, they sort of built these limitations, separated the chaos from the order, the light from the dark. They are the embodiment of chaos and order, but they're ascended embodiments, so it's not destructive and it's not blinding. It's balanced, and they both, we have to include the mother more often, separated darkness from light and created parameters for more souls to spark. And yeah, they basically created everything. So even though simultaneously we're pulling ourselves from nothing, building the energy even before we come to earth and start doing that same thing, we're doing it in a just formless state too, in a spiritual sense. And there is us pulling ourselves into being, and then there's gods that also pull certain souls in. And once we're inside that mental womb type of thing, I know it sounds a little ridiculous, but that's how I see this. It's like movement, change is constant. There's constant movement, and the wheel never stops turning. Experience never stops turning. Once you're aware, it's very hard to ever go back to that place before you became aware. And the thing is, within the quantum mind and creation and what we've built, all of us on different levels, outside of that, with the source creator energy, creative energy is unchanging, and everything within the womb is constantly changing. And I think that if it's the highest source truth, it's going to stand the test of time. So you guys might say some lessons are outdated, but if they were accurate, they're never outdated. They might need to be updated sometimes, but if it's the source truth, it's unchanging and it's reliable. It's when we let the mind start to do its little dance of contrast that it's hard to hold one single truth amongst all of us. It's really hard to have any single truth, because the fact that you saw something that would serve it's like to pull yourself into existence, and you have to have something that to offer to the collective mind, because there's hidden forces that weave these things for us, that kind of give you a nudge to push yourself into existence. And they're kind of like fates or weavers, where they will help people pull themselves into, and it's for a reason, okay? So to even be existing as an individual outside of that ocean of consciousness and entanglement, to even exist within a purpose, is how you sparked an existence in the first place. So, it means that you wanted your own identity separate from the quantum soup and that collective ocean, and you were able to basically like fight your way through to come to life. You fought your way through like an ocean of potentials and other beings, and you built it before you ever even built it in the physical. You built it in the spiritual. And every possible color that you could work with is very infinite. All right, so sometimes I share messages that I feel are timeless, that can't be changed because they come from Source. And the highest truth is that positive energy is breathing life into creation. And it just fuels us to want to live. Like it's that force pushing people to even have the willpower to want to live. And they fight for their identity amongst the whole enough to be able to take on a soul embodiment of them. So spirit manifests through layers. And the Father and the Mother God, they built the whole thing. They gave it structure, and they breathed it with, healthy love and limitation, as well as unconditional love and a little chaos. And they made it just right. It's all designed. And so sometimes people think everything is perfect, but the only constant within the quantum, which is everything in existence, is a part of this quantum mind, even the physical. This is all the mind trying to express itself into the environment, or it's trying to learn about itself through this external experience, this human experience. And everything in here is in a constant state of flux, a constant state of change. And everything within the source, outside of the container that was built, is perfect and pure and good and always. And the Father and the Mother are a reflection of Source taking on an embodiment, so they're pretty pure too. Like they are Source expressing itself into polarities. But the polarities constantly have to shift and dance and move. Constantly. So within existence, the quantum mind, it can't always be perfect, You can find a way to view it as perfect and roll with it and sculpt it to be whatever perfect is to you, but it's really beyond what consciousness has created in that source energy where it stays unchangeably perfect. And sure, we could just be like, hey guys, everything is perfect. End of message. But that's a beautiful place to be, right? But we would have nothing to say if that was always the case. And within the things that the mind does, it does it to itself oftentimes, creates its own limitations. It's natural for the mind to build limitations, like I said, to build order. We reflect the Father and the Mother even if they didn't spark you. Everyone reflects the Father and the Mother. They've got feelings riding on thoughts, thoughts riding on feelings, frequencies and vibrations, shifting stations all the time. And To exist at all means you're a part of the story now. And by all of us being characters in this grand story that the quantum mind is trying to calculate just right, to make, some kind of master plan play out, but God's are like the father and the mother are the highest embodiments of logic and intuition. And imagine a life without that, without thoughts and feelings. We would be just robots. And thoughts and feelings make the world go round truly if you think about it. People have thoughts and feelings and desires that they want fulfilled. That's what makes them chase some money or chase power, whatever it may be, is those thoughts and those feelings that they want to fulfill. That's why oftentimes we have to tame those things to reach the source, because the source is beyond all duality and polarity. But it's also within it. It's also expressing itself through every single bit of existence while still being the fuel outside of it all. It's very interesting, right? And you don't want to let thoughts and feelings get the best of you, but when they're ascended, you understand that this whole experience serves a divine purpose, and it's beautiful. It's just when it's controlling you that it seems like it's not beautiful, but when you have everything balanced, it does start aligned to perfection, where you can have one foot in this human experience and one foot in the perfection, and you can meld them. But to reach that, you have to kind of master yourself a little bit, and it's not always like, snap, it's done and we're perfect. It takes some work, and it's okay to honor the work that it takes to reach those states of a higher awareness and to stay there. And I know you can speak over your life as if you have it all, as if there's nothing in your way, and that does help it. But there's some things we got to work through it. We got to organize it ourselves. Just like the mother and the father organized everything into this grand network, this quantum mind that we could all be a part of and express God together. That's beautiful. And that wasn't like Rome wasn't built in a day. Like this thing was built over all of our whole existence just to have this beautiful experience we have now. Even the heavy parts and the dark emotions and feelings and stuff. Lighten it up and understand we're all learning, right? So even when things seem really bad, say you're like having the worst day of your life, you feel just terrible, and if you like soften up a little bit, you allow yourself to go through that purge and purge all those feelings. You may feel a little out of control, but it's necessary to purge these built up feelings, to work through them, and to have people meeting you with understanding and forgiveness, allowing you to express this side of yourself, this depth. And even I went through like a purge today, and I was like, God, I really messed up by allowing that to affect me, like how much it hurt me just thinking on things that I've lost in life, and how it's like, hard to deal with some things by myself like I always do. And I was just struggling with it, and then I realized that it felt so good to work through that wound and release it. And it wasn't the end of the world, And every time I realize that, I deal with life a little better. I'm less reactive to triggers. And I understood that I needed to feel that. Even though I like to feel good all the time, it doesn't mean that you did anything wrong. If you want to fall into that depth and allow yourself to heal from it by feeling it, it really does help to just release yourself and just release it all, however that needs to be done. And in life, we're often told to suppress things. And so sometimes just to scream or break something is like kind of necessary, as long as you're not hurting anybody. Like, sometimes you just got to get that anger out, as that human part of you needs that. That part of you that's been torn apart by the world needs to crash out and break sometimes. And trying to maintain perfection it's not always fun. Like, and the whole point of living is to ebb and flow with the cycles and the feelings. And if we didn't have that constant movement, then we would be trying to stay in source energy where things are perfect and happy all the time. And yes, we can really stay there a lot, but like, we also have to stay in the flow of this life, or this life will become meaningless. It's almost like trying to stay in source energy. You're discarding life wanting to be lived right here in this moment. And I guess you can meld the perfection with the moment and live in both worlds. I mean, I really think you can. I do it too, but it's like trying to stay in this perfection and not allowing life to life itself as life does. It's like not really doable for 24/7. I don't know how to explain it. It's like, if you start going to source 24/7, life will become like a delusion. You won't be able to tell the worlds apart. They'll like become, maybe that's a good thing. I see the heaven and earth melding, and yet like the reality is bending. So I'm going to call that a good thing. Like, I wanted to say, when you try to stay in perfection, it becomes boring. It kind of starts to become slow, and like it's trapping you after a while. But I see that you're drawing it into the physical, and you're moving and being very still. You're breathing and pausing as one. And yeah, that's beautiful what I see. And I think that's what we're all doing. And I think that's why my crystal ball moved like it did, is because my faith is not blind. I know these supernatural, these otherworldly things are all around us in different dimensional folds, all around us. And if we could just rip open that dimension, we could have our old gifts back, our gifts that have been suppressed by society, because the collective mind that doesn't believe is dragging everyone else down and making our old gifts disappear. See, God made it so that everyone, although they're on very unique paths, is still attached to everyone else in some way. So we could never ascend without pulling up everybody with us. You can't ascend without bringing a friend, Spirit says. And that's a true energy. So when I talk about there's been several source expansions, that's still all within the nothingness. And like I said, the source energy is just fuel for our creativity. And the mother and the father are just embodiments of creative energy being organized. And you can just view it as creating timelines, like turning the quantum into something we can experience on a linear time. Like, in the quantum, everything is jumping everywhere all at once. You're literally stretched into a million pieces all at once. So linear time was created so we could experience something beyond just like quantum jumping. And it was to further your experience of yourself. So it's all about experiencing yourself. And time like speeds up, slows down, jumps around based on our state of consciousness. Literally, the world is so boring only because everyone's minds have been caged and suppressed. If the whole world opened their mind, I'm not even kidding you, like abilities, superpowers would happen. But they're all tied together, so they have to do it together. And God had a reason for doing that too. I guess he didn't want any one person to think they could play God and have all the power. So they have to ascend as one and become one somehow. Somehow, someday, like they will though. They'll like long to return to source energy where everything is as one. Before the quantum mind, in source energy, everything, is originating from the same place, really, this positive place. There is like a lower source polarity, but it's really not even evil. It's kind of like the sun and the moon. It's just like the shadow, the subconscious, like in the quantum mind. And some darker forces do get born of the dark source energy, but they're usually for serving God's will or the divine will. So like in the natural design, nobody's really damned innately. Everyone gets an equal chance, and people kind of dig their own graves or their own damnation based on their actions. And people are really stubborn because that stubbornness, that fight is what gives you form in the first place in the womb. And when those things, people realize themselves by building sacred geometric forms that turn into real embodiments. They build it in their mind first, and then they have a body that is attuned to their consciousness that they can jump into. They get like sucked into the physical form once they've built enough in their own mind to be able to handle that form, that experience. So they're so independent. And when you look into what draws a person into form out of the nothingness, and I'm talking about like there's layers. So there's a nothingness, like a greater nothingness beyond the source. And there's a like chaotic primordial nothingness within the womb. And they reflect each other, but there's layers of form. Like I would have to draw a whole map to explain it for you. And they also draw themselves from this potential nothingness within the waters. Some people are drawn from the chaos, some are drawn from the calm, but they all kind of are supposed to be coexisting in harmony if they would just allow it. Like they don't even have to try, just to be innate as they were like designed, as they designed themselves. It's always like if they design themselves for a grander purpose, about a grander plan, and if they just fall into that innate embodiment, it's like a peaceful place between all people, even if they're born from totally opposite energies. But there's the lesser kind of darker source, but even the greater source, the positive source, is even greater than the darker source. So even for the darker source beings, they're still within the positive source, which is within the nothingness. So everything's within the source creator that I speak of. And it is the closest thing I have ever found to a God beyond what we think we know, I guess. And I have my own religion. I'm explaining it a lot, and there's a lot to it, and there's a lot I haven't even said, but I found this all exploring. I can explore spaces beyond humans, beyond consciousness, okay? So everything within the quantum mind and form is consciousness. Even the material plane's built out of consciousness and thoughts and feelings. And there is an overall spirit that moves through everything. The energy that animates all life, and everything's connected in this spirit, and everything's entangled in their separation because they're entangled because their spirit is one, really. So that will always cause these threads of connections. And it's really deep, to explain all this. But everything within the source, outside the container, the womb, whatever, everything out there is pure spirit. There's really no consciousness there. That's another reason why I find it hard to think that people could exist there for long periods of time, because you would have to go into non-existence and just be energy with no bias or no, like, it's positive energy, but and it's positive in the sense that it fuels creation. That's what makes it positive. It gives life, but it gives life to every single person's mind. So in that way, we get to choose entirely how we use it. But some of the highest forces, embodiments, the highest awareness, the highest intelligence, they do create rules and restrictions. They're working as order, and like the Father God that I work with, he can organize everything into perfect harmony and has created laws and restrictions on consciousness. And maybe it seems like for some people they don't want to follow a Father God, but for me, I find that, it showers me with bliss, so I don't see any problem with it. And yes, you guys have God in you. Everything in existence has God in it. Like, that's kind of what I'm saying. So you can start being like, I am God's embodiment. I am God. If you want to, that view is valid. But I choose personally to see God as something a little bit greater than just me. And it's even greater than God. It's all of us together that makes it happen, that makes his inspiration get fulfilled. And the divine plan gets fulfilled through us. If we don't fulfill it, God has no power, right? So I believe in his plan, and it's helped me in my life, and he's just made me feel really good in life. So it's greater than just me, although I know I have all the greatness of it within me at the same time, just like everyone else. It's just a matter of reaching that awareness. And we reach greater levels of awareness every day. We just have to be willing. Okay, so basically I see, this is just the way I look at life. Don't take it too seriously if you don't want to, but you can, because I do. The whole physical world looks like the womb to me. It literally looks like we're still in that place of formlessness, reaching God and reaching perfection. And we're under the illusion that we're in this like cruel, imperfect world. But really, we're just dreaming up this experience. And we really never do leave the perfection, to be honest. It actually is perfect, and we never really left that place. The mind has built this whole maze of experience, human experience. And in essence, we never left source. But for some reason, we chose to dream up an illusion where we did. And I think that that's for the ability to reach your God or goddess identity, like your highest self. I mean, really, we wanted identity, we wanted individuality. I see these like potentials in the water, like rubbing, bumping against each other. And like everyone's like, I need space, like I need room to create. I want my own creation, my own body. And they started to like pull themselves out of that place, that collective place, to find their selves, their individuality. So I view it all as water, as like a reflection. Like when you're looking into the water and you see your reflection, it's kind of like everyone dove into their own reflection in like a dream state, and it's playing all around us, and it seems infinite, but it's really as one. We're all reflections in a sense. where we all came from the same collective ocean. I did a video on the mirror world. That's kind of where the mirror world is located, in that place where all things are tied together. You can find connections between all things in subtle ways. And I think people wanted to get away from that, really. It was literally like this claustrophobic space, and people wanted, like, I want autonomy, I want a sense of self, and they manifested that experience where they get to have a serious sense of self. And then eventually, like, I guess the soul realized, like, it wants to go home. There's part of us all that wants to be as one, or wants to be one with God, at least. Maybe not always with people, but wants to be one with themselves and God within, or God without, or God is never without. But like, what I'm trying to say is there's some people who want to be one with God, and they really do believe in a higher power. There's some that want to be one with God, and they believe they are the higher power. Both realities are true to an extent. Because what creates the truth is what we build. And if you put enough energy into your creation, and other people do too, or whatever, it's going to become a real thing. So we started this in the womb. We built this whole world for ourselves with God's and Goddess help. And we think it's all messed up, but we actually built it for ourselves. So something in us must have wanted this experience. And I think that eventually people start to miss home. They start to miss wholeness, especially when they're separated from themselves so much and others. And they start to, like, learn the lesson of all the greed and pride, and they shed it all and they return to oneness. And it's really kind of a simple thing, and people overcomplicate it. But yeah, it's an adventure. So God and all of us created infinite avenues of learning since the beginning, since forever. And once all those avenues, those timelines reach a completion, it all comes back into one. And the source sort of is reborn with a new cycle for all of us, like all of existence. And that takes a really long time to have that fully happen. But that happens. And in a sense, it is timeless, because like I said, time was only created so that we're not being pulled in a million quantum directions and pieces. But time can change according to our consciousness, just like everything that's ever been built will change according to our consciousness. And that's a truth that cannot change. That truth can't change, that everything will change according to our consciousness. And that's one of those things that lasts, because it's accurate. But just time was created to experience the in-between moments, right? But in essence, as always, it is timeless, like it always was. It's dreaming up all of this experience for a reason, but still dreaming it up. So this is timeless, even now. Like everything we experience about things that happened in the beginning, we're still doing right now. We're just doing it with more detail, with more lenses over our perspective. We have more experience that creates more lenses to look through to build reality. So we're literally building the physical and everything through acquiring new lenses that we throw over our vision. And it's like building an intricate design, the whole world around us. So we have experienced every bit of this world and like mushed it together into a creation that we could dive into. I hope that makes sense. So I see realities of the physical world stacked on top of each other in front of someone's eye, like spy lenses. And it actually is like building what we're observing, because we know that's like nothing is there until we observe it. So literally, like if something if you're not looking at something, it doesn't really even exist. So everything you're seeing has been built through many incarnations of acquiring many lenses and perspectives to even be able to see the depth of the physical or other realms too. So there's never really a good reason to argue over beliefs because every person is a piece of the creator. And hopefully, yeah, we could all unite in some way, like he says, but everyone is accurate in their own observation as a piece of the creator. So it's pointless to argue over truths because truths are built. Everyone just forgot that we built this shit from a fucking speck of potential. We built everything. Like everything was in that little speck. And we brought it in and somehow like it became huge. We built something small into something massive. It was once like a circle or a square or a triangle, and then we started stacking triangles like spiritual children, and we built a whole world out of this. I'm not kidding you. Until we could jump into it. And now you see these sacred geometric forms in everything that are so intricate that started out as nothing more than a freaking little triangle or something. But we're deep into the creation at this point, and people still question creation versus creator. You're both at the same time. Especially if you're one of the originals. You're like God's original inspiration, his counsel. He can't do it without you. The further people get away from source and the source embodiments, the mother and the father, the more they get trapped into density and limited thinking. But the father created limits. He created the parameters on consciousness so we could have an experience, and we built off of what he has helped us build. Also, like, we have a lot of assistance too, even from like beings who weave consciousness together, all kinds of stuff that God uses to help us with build this experience together. And the further people get away from creator, they start to be more fractal. They have less source energy, but they could make that light bigger the more that they work with it. But if someone's really not tapped in, they're still a piece of source. They're just like a very distant piece or like a newer piece. The originals were like the first ones, like the original counsel of God. And the sleepers are just kind of fractalized to the point where they have very low consciousness. But they could potentially reach the same heights as anyone else if they tapped in and worked on it hard enough. So it helps to view every moment as divinely inspired because you are inspired that way. So everything you do is meant to be. So if you have a breakdown, it was meant to be. It was for you to come to a greater realization. And those, it's like people rubbing up against each other too much, not giving each other space can cause a breakdown, or not giving you the love and respect you deserve. And you're just like bursting free of caring what people think, even though you love people. And sometimes that's okay, because sometimes people need you to put your foot down so they can remember who the fuck you are. So, life is all about balance, right? If you maintain your balance and release your dark side, your dragon from time to time, and balance your angel and your saint and your goddess or god or whatever sometimes, as long as you stay balanced, then life won't have to be this extreme duality. But that is kind of the whole purpose. And if you've mastered that, and you're beyond like being triggered by battles or being blinded by love, and you're kind of able to just observe life and humans and all their silly stories and observe it without being wrapped up in it, You're probably ascending beyond the narrative and the physical programming, and you're the example for the rest of them to see beyond programming, because that's what it takes to get the gifts to work more, you know? It's more than just belief. It's like every little person has to put their piece in. It's not ever going to happen any other way. And it would be the most beautiful thing you ever seen if everyone did that. But so many people are bogged down with like responsibilities that they don't even have time for spirit. The system keeps them so busy and distracted with other things that spirit always gets neglected. And they do that on purpose. This world isn't fallen. It's just riddled with horrible programs that have made everything go dormant and dense. And that's always true. And like people think they're going to snap their fingers and fix it. No. Long-term fixes, you have to get people really believing in their power and using it as one. And then you would see they could do anything they want to do. Anything at all. They have the power inside there. You have the power inside you sleeping. Wake it up, wake it up, wake it up. Yeah, so this is a lot about the creation story. If it doesn't make sense to you, I don't know what to tell you, but it makes perfect sense to me. And I also see when like things start to really take form, they get kind of birthed and squeezed into the physical, through the mental into the physical. And yeah, it's all mental. The whole existence is mental until you get into pure source energy, creative energy. It's spiritual. But yeah, I think I'm going to leave that message there. The balance seems just right. And let me know if you have any questions. If this message has helped you, please donate. I would really appreciate it if you can. I definitely need the money, and I'm putting all my energy into this for you guys. I hope it's not falling on deaf ears. But even just commenting and letting me know and subscribing and liking, I appreciate you guys. And I'm more willing to like take on this role as God's benevolent messenger, and when I know that I'm being heard as well, and all of you are being heard. And all right, that's the lesson for today. I'll talk to you in another video. Take care, everyone. Much love on a universal source level.